Please sit down. I'm going to read from 1 Corinthians 12, verses 12 to 20. So Paul says this: "For just as the body is one and has many members, and all the members of the body, though many, are one body, so it is with Christ. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews and Greeks, slaves and free. And we were all made to drink of one Spirit. Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. And if the foot were to say, 'Because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less part of the body. And if the ear were to say, 'Because I am not an ear, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the hearing be? If the whole body were hearing, where would the sense of smell be? But as it is, God has arranged the members in the body, each one of them as he chose. If all were a single member, where would the body be? As it is, there are many members, yet one body." Amen. So just as we're talking about making room for all, I thought really thank you to Sue and Roger for that sort of word of testimony, because it kind of illustrates what it's like to have space to grow as a family, to grow in faith, to be able to serve, to be able to contribute to the church. I have to say, we were gutted when we heard that you were going, immediately taking it personally, but then gradually getting over it. And, it's one of those good reminders to, it's not all about you. But still, as Claire said, it's fantastic to hear this. So many stories, not just of jobs done, but just of presence and of just what you bring as people. And as we think about a healthy church, making room for all, there's that wonderful illustration that this is what it's about, a place to play its part in people blossoming, people growing, people becoming more and more who they are and who they have the potential to be. And it's in that context that we look at what Paul's got to say in this text, and he does this strange sort of comparison about ears and noses and all the rest of it. And he does it because he knows that we make comparisons. We just can't help ourselves. We're always comparing. The highlight of my morning is going to be, without doubt, Sue saying my person was good. I was looking around thinking, oh yeah, it was, wasn't it? It was good. I was thinking, do I get a certificate just to say that it was good? I've got a handheld cross, which is not quite so spectacular. But we make comparisons because we live with others. Evidently, it's to do with the fact that we learn through imitation, and we're all learning through imitation. And in the end, we want to know that whether our imitation of whatever it is up to scratch, how we're doing. It's how we develop. And we do it on all sorts of levels. I wonder if anybody can either tell me, we'll go through a few of these, can either tell me, either from memory or from where they are now, who was the cleverest person in your class? Go on, Holly. You. That day, I love that. Excellent. Sorry? Wow, he knew 2,000. So did you see? We know. You just call it straight to mind. Right, you do know it's 4? Yeah, more than that. Excellent. Okay, so we've got that. Who is the fastest person? Do you remember who was the fastest person? Who's the fastest person in your class? You! I tell you, Emma, you are bringing up a very confident family. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. Can anyone else remember the fastest person in their class?
In Scarlett's, it's Dylan.
Dylan. You see, we got... And Millet. Ooh, two fastest. So head to, in fact, Lewis is wearing the scars of discovering he wasn't the fastest person in his class. He had a race this week in the playground, and trying to catch up with the boy ahead of him, ran into a big pole and sort of had a big cut to wear for it. This is a harder one. Who's the most popular person in your class? Go on. Wow. No, it's good to have evidence. You as well? Yeah. You two got to sort this out. Lucky you're in different classes. That's all Sorry? 2020. 2020? Is that followers or last year? That's amazing. That's crushed me on my 200 followers on Twitter. I'll tell you, I wish I hadn't started this. And as we go on, we recognise this. This isn't just for kids, is it? If I were to say, does anyone know who's got the best dishwasher in the church? No, they do. It's that obvious. Do we know who's got the nicest garden on our road? Do we know who's got the best car on our road? I know. I don't even like cars, and I can picture immediately. There's a house with 2 BMWs parked outside it on the road, one black and one white. Looks so stylish. I'm not, sorry? I know. Well, I don't know anything about cars. It's the colours I like and the sort of shininess. But yeah, in any case, we make these comparisons, don't we? And sometimes we come out of them badly. We probably all had that, where there's been the comparisons. Some of us are not fast. I was fast, I find that easy. Some of us are not popular. I'm not going to even go into that because I'll start crying. But, we come out of it sometimes badly. And that's what Paul starts with. It's interesting that he starts with the coming out badly, because he does this thing where he says, the foot can't say the hand and this kind of thing. And then he goes on later to those who come out well and says the eye shouldn't say just, I'm better than the rest. But he does this picture, knowing that we come out of things badly. And he pictures a foot saying, I wish I was a hand. I'm sick of spending all my time in a sock. If I were a hand, I'd get a grip of things. As it is, I can't. You see what I did there? Or the ear saying, here there are eyes, all sparkly and blue, and people stare into them, fixated, not even looking for wax. I can see clearly that eyes are better than ears, but at least I'm not a snotty nose. There's always someone, isn't there? And Paul pictures a proud eye looking down on nose and ears, saying, who needs noses and ears? I look great. And of course, then the mouth would chip in and say, well, you couldn't even say any of that because you're not a mouth. The absurd comparisons. And Paul says it's absurd because it doesn't work that way. Bodies need all of it. And his point is, of course, it's absurd in church as well. And when we think about how comparison is built in to our lives, it's a very strong message to say it's out of place. It's absurd in church. And that's not to say we can't make any comparisons or never even be competitive. Jesus gets quite competitive, doesn't he? He says, if you want to be first, then you need to be last and servant of all. He's looking for some ambition, some race there. Just make sure you're not running in the wrong direction. In the letter of Hebrews, it says, let's spur one another on to good deeds. Let's get going on these things. But the point is that every body part has its part to play. Without the nose, he says, how would you smell? Thank you. And so on. But his point is this. In church, every member brings something crucial. Something that changes the shape, the feel, the ministry, the life of church. There is a whole way of being together that is attentive to each other, that isn't dismissive of others, that doesn't pass over others, so that each person knows that they bring something to the shape, to the feel, to the life of the church. And It would be wonderful if we were saying amen to that. And I'm not saying that we should be, the odd amen is great. But what I mean is deep down if we were all really getting that. But we know we're not, don't we? We know that some of us are hearing that. Most of us are hearing that, thinking, oh yeah, that's true of that person, they bring loads. It's a hard thing to learn, and it's a way of being in the church. How do we nurture that? How does that exchange come about? That high opinion of each other, to think without you, this church would be less. And Paul says this, he says it works this way for a reason. He said, Paul says that it works this way for a reason because God is present in each of us, in all of us, all baptized into one spirit, all given one spirit to drink. That's what we have in common. It's not that we're all the same. It's not that we have to become a certain sort of person to fit in. There's all that diversity that we had in the opening prayer this morning. But we have something in common. We are all given one spirit to live from. We are all animated by God. And how will God's spirit bring God's life to expression in each of us? What do we embody of God? Recently, we've been thinking about trees as a metaphor for church. Using the image, we can see that, if you like, trees and plants, they make room, for all. It's almost like an irrelevant question with them. They're made up of so many different parts. There's branches, trees, leaves, all the rest of it. And it's not a question of belonging. No one's going to say, oh, look at that tree, it's doing really well. Let's make room for the roots. Just not a kind of question, not a kind of comment you'd make, is it? Look at that tree, it's doing really well. Let's make room for the branches. It's not a question of belonging. It's a question of health. A tree is only healthy when all the parts are healthy. And if any part isn't healthy, we would say that tree's got a problem. It's a question of the health of the church. To say, well, all the members feel that they belong, know that there's a space for them, know that they bring something to the church. At Claire's, at the Macmillan event that we were talking about earlier, Claire bought this spider plant. This is the plant that I put down there that everyone's been nearly tripping over during the service. And I became quite captivated. You bought it for the office. It's been a little meditation piece for me this week because you can see what they're meant to look like. Eventually, when you come into the office, we might have to move this whole plant downstairs because it's going to look like that on the screen. And it grows from the tips. So I'm going to just ask, what you can't tell, and this is what I can't tell, is where's the next one? You can see there's going to be a growth there. This is a bit of a poor example. So on the screen you can see. But Declan, just tell me, where's the next one going to grow? So we've got one growing there. Where do you think? Which leaf? Which? Forensic examination going on. What do you think?
This one.
That one?
No.
Oh?
This one, the biggest one.
Right. So I'm going to mark this one later and just see if you're right. Where do you think?
Big.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. A spider
Yeah.
plant. Well done. It's like someone paying attention. This is incredible. Can you see where the next one is going to grow? Oh, where was that one? That's the one that you used. Is that the one you said?
I'm doing the biggest one.
Sorry?
The biggest.
The biggest. Ah, you went for the biggest.
This one.
That one. Okay, it was the biggest.
I think he's going to grow because of there.
Uh-huh.
The black bits, I think they're...
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go those two. They're incredible, yeah. So we're going to go for those two. I'll try and mark them. But if I were to take it round to people who know about spider plants, do you know about spider plants? If I were to take it round to people who know about, someone might be able to point it out, but I have a sneaking suspicion no one would know. Except for the very confident amongst us might have. Then no one will know that you just can't tell. Certainly I can't tell. It could be the biggest leaf, it could be the smallest. But life grows on the edges of this until in the end it becomes like the screen. I'm putting a little screen. And there's something in that just says, what's church like? But life comes through the members, and we don't know where or how. You know, we look at certain members and we think, oh, really glad they've come, they bring a lot. We're really gutted they're leaving, they brought a lot. But the thing is that the idea about making room for all is that simple notion of thinking God brings people into church and God works through them. And through each of us, life comes. Every one of us who is here is like one of these stems through which life can come. It's not easily programmed and planned. Someone may tell me afterwards that spider plants work slightly differently. I don't know. But churches don't. It's not programmed and planned. It's that people can express themselves. People feel at home and they bring something. And we don't know what it is that God will use, what direction God will take a church in. But it comes through members feeling able to be the Christians that God has called them to be in the community. And I want to finish just by saying, yesterday we sang a song called Rescuer at the induction, and it had a lovely phrase. It said, there is good news for the captive, good news for the shamed. There is good news for the one who walked away. There is good news for the doubter, the one religion failed, for the good Lord has come to seek and save. And part of the good news, we sang that with real enthusiasm yesterday, with real commitment. And part of the good news of that is that the church is a home for all those who were shamed, who were turned away, who didn't feel like they could belong. A place to be at home, to grow and to contribute, to actually become the person that in God's Spirit, in the gifts of the Spirit and the presence and the grace of God's Spirit, we can become. And that welcome makes room for all. It's just like clearing the ground is something that we say, something that we sing, and something that we have got to become better at. And I'm not saying that because this church is not particularly good. It feels a wonderfully welcoming church. We've been welcomed. It'd be a bit of an indictment if we weren't. But churches in general. Neil yesterday, who was preaching at the indictment, said we need to get used to and get good at practicing a wild welcome, where people really, really know they belong with all their quirks, with all their problems, with all their joys, with all their gifts, because that is the ground clearing that leads to this, all of the church being able to express itself. Only that is a healthy church. And in the present context, we don't know what church is supposed to look like in the next phase. We don't know what ministries, what life we're supposed to embody. But the gifts are here. The life is here. And we just need to have that sense of making room for one another and for the next one and the next two that come through. A wild welcome so that we can see things grow wildly. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're called to. Amen. We're going